name is Rob Lee. I am the CEO and co-founder over at Dragos. I am also a SANS instructor and course author at SANS. I am the course author for the ICS 515 class, so ICS Active Defense and Incident Response, as well as the Forensics 578 Cyber Threat Intelligence course. So a lot of you are familiar to me and a lot of my previous students in here, so thank you again for greatly joining us. Tim?
My name is Tim Conway. I work for SANS as the curriculum lead of industrial control systems. If you think about kind of SANS as just like a college, university with a bunch of different curriculums, whether it's College of Business, College of Law, or College of Engineering, we have a series of curriculums, forensics, penetration testing, cyber defense. We have an industrial control system specific curriculum. That is what I'm the curriculum lead of. Also an author of, contributing author for a number of ICS courses at SANS and an instructor for our newest ICS 612 course, as well as the ICS 456 course, which is focused on NERC and SIP. Prior to coming to SANS, I was with a combo utility combination electric transmission generation distribution, as well as natural gas pipeline distribution and storage for about 15 years. Came to SANS about 7 years ago when we started this journey.
Yep, awesome. All right, well, why don't you, like I said, let's assume no familiarity. Why don't you run us through, Tim, 2 quick slides on who SANS is and kind of what to expect.
Sure thing. So for those not familiar, SANS has a lot of different parts and pieces in this, what I'm calling the SANS universe here, and not so much to dive into every part of these. I wanted to talk about this more, again, as Rob had indicated, not assuming any level of expectation from anybody, but SANS has a number of different curriculum areas, whether it's forensics, whether it's cyber defense, or kind of cyber secure programming, our new cloud security, and SANS penetration testing, where there are a number of courses in each one of those curriculums that focus on those areas for people working those job roles with those direct responsibilities. The left side of this, this slide is a lot of the other things that SANS does. So with training courses, we also have certification and credentialing program under the GIAC umbrella. We have a master's degree program under the SANS Technology Institute. We have a cyber talent tool where people can go through and organizations can use that tool and that capability to assess different people's skill sets in hiring decisions or job placement decisions, or in general qualifications for job duties. We have the larger security awareness program that many organizations use for general security awareness for all the users of their systems, and the Internet Storm Center with kind of the open, free analysis that daily handlers are seeing. This part of the SANS universe is what, when I worked for the utilities and worked within critical infrastructure for about 15 years, this is how I knew SANS. And all along those lines, it was a general question for our people who worked in transmission or in operational technology, not the traditional IT information technology, kind of data at rest, something sitting in a storage or in a file system, data in motion across a network, or data in use within an application, moving more into the operational technology, so data that does something, has a physical kinetic effect. It's either bringing data in from a element, or it's taking action to a specific piece of equipment. The area that I worked was within the OT area. And as we knew who SANS was and leveraged a lot of their training, we took a general different approach where we would send people to courses, or we would host a course within our utility. And when the course ended, every day we would meet with our internal teams to talk about things that you just learned and how they apply differently within industrial control system environments. And over the years, having those same conversations with individuals like Mike Asante and Alan Paller, the discussion started to move towards, why should we be spending our time untraining things that we just learned because they don't apply within an industrial control system space? Instead, why don't we move forward with creation of industrial control system specific courses and certifications? So if you can go to the next slide. That is generally when we started this journey of creating industrial control system specific courses, and each one of these has an associated credential and certification tied to it. with exception to ICS 612, which is a course that we just released. So the certification is in development for that course. About 7 years ago, we started the process of saying, starting from nothing and growing this industrial control system curriculum, what is the #1 course that is necessary? And working with industry leaders and kind of the voice of customer, individuals like Tyler Williams from Shell and a lot of other multinational oil and electric utilities and nuclear, as well as influence from different DoD elements. A lot of discussion around the need for bridging the gap between IT and OT. As 7 years ago, when we were moving into a kind of converged environment where people were working from, not converged from a technology perspective, the technology convergence happened long, long ago, but merging from the workforce perspective of getting IT individuals knowledgeable and capable within a OT environment, and taking traditional OT individuals that using cyber digital elements to perform tasks that were previously analog or electromechanical, to understand the security vulnerabilities and potential impacts and misuse cases of those cyber digital elements now, and kind of building that bridge between those two different parts of the organization who are now working together on common solutions. Moving from there, we went into our 515 course with Mr. Rob M. Lee. So as we started reaching out and having an impact with 410 across multiple industries, the most common question that was coming to us after that was, we are now getting deployments into OT environments, and we are now seeing data sets. We need a better way of understanding what those data sets are. We need a better way of understanding the protocols, and we need a better way of defending those environments when we see bad things occurring. And Rob stepped up to the plate and took over this course development and authored 515, which was our second course in this space, and really met that kind of customer demand. So as I'm walking through these, we're sort of trying to meet the customers where they are with each course that we build. 456 was generated because of the large movement from NERC-CIP into version 5, which was kind of a complete paradigm shift from people who were used to dealing with those standards for a decade. Now it was moving into a completely different paradigm and a different approach. And last, our latest course was really the hunger from our customers as they've moved through ICS 410, 515, and 456, as well as some additional SANS courses. They wanted more and more real-world hands-on experience, and that generated ICS 612. Our movements forward are going in towards ICS-specific penetration testing courses, as well as ICS-specific forensic courses, and potentially some malware analysis courses, working with Dragos and their team. With that, I think those are the two main elements behind SANS that I want to discuss: the general SANS cybersecurity training, credentialing, and research side, and specifically the industrial control system curriculum side, which is pertinent for this conference.
So for those of you that have never heard of us before, Dragos is an ICS cybersecurity specific firm. So that's all we focus on is industrial control system security. We have 190 plus employees, and we've got our headquarters in Hanover, Maryland. We've got another office in Houston, as well as Riyadh. And as soon as the COVID stuff is done, we'll finally be able to open up our Melbourne, Australia office. We've got employees there already doing some awesome stuff. The thing that kind of was my journey into this is I started out in the U.S. Air Force side of the house, went over to the National Security Agency, and ended up getting to be involved in building out the U.S. government's first mission, looking at first of its kind mission, looking at states breaking into industrial sites around the world. And there was very much this gap I felt on visibility, not just in visibility and asset identification and things like that, but visibility into the threat landscape. There's a lot of, well, I'm not a good target, or, well, the threats aren't really happening. And then you ask people, like, are you even looking for them in your environments? And like, well, no. I'm like, well, then how would you know, man? And as it turns out, there's plenty of threats that are specifically targeting industrial environments, and they're doing it in different ways. And because our mission is different, it requires a different approach to security. So that's what drove me to SANS originally. And actually, a lot of Dragos was formed not only out of my experience on the government side, but it was just teaching 515 to my students and seeing the gaps they were struggling with and saying, look, we know how to do this now. We've got the processes defined. We don't have the right technology to actually go and do the things that you're talking about. And so that's when Dragos was born. Again, just a quick one of like, what do we do? So we are a technology company. And so our technology is an ICS asset identification and threat detection and response tool. So think of a network appliance that you're deploying into these OT and ICS networks that then passively identifies the assets and then helps you detect threats and respond to them. But in my view, the best way to build technology is to have the best people. So we spent a ton of time on recruiting and finding and training and building the best talent on ICS security that we could. And as a byproduct of that, we also have now this amazing services team that goes out and works with folks on things like incident response, penetration testing, architecture assessments, tabletop exercises, all sorts of fun stuff. And then our intel team, which is just, there's a lot of good people in the world, and so I don't want to be braggadocious, but they are second to none on the topic. And they're out tracking the adversaries daily. And the idea is to take the knowledge that we have from our services team and the knowledge that we have from our intel team and constantly drive that to our technology. So that's who Dragos is. And let's go ahead and get off that and let's talk about the conference, and let's get into kind of a laying the land of the threat landscape and kick it off with Jason. So Tim, back to you.
Just a couple of things as I was considering kind of where we are and how we want to talk about this conference. So there's a couple of topics. About 7 weeks ago, Rob and I were in Orlando enjoying Disney World and having a similar conference to this. So SANS runs industrial control system security kind of summits, and we have for 15 years. Rob and I are the co-chairs of those events, and we were just together kind of when in the US we were talking about, hey, don't give people hugs at the conference and don't shake hands, kind of bump elbows. And that was the level of concern that we had currently. We ran through that conference, we ran all of our training, we all went home. And after returning home, it was one day after the next. And by the end of that week, we were approaching closing borders, trying to get all of our SANS instructors from everywhere in the world home safely as fast as humanly possible, and then moving all of our events over the next couple of months into live online training where we weren't flying around the world. As Rob and I were kind of looking at 2020 and all the different opportunities and plans we had within the industrial control system space, and kind of looking at that mission of working with all of you on this call and all of critical infrastructure and key resource, kind of looking towards the next 3 summits that we were doing in 2020, the DISC conferences that Dragos runs, the training opportunities, a number of different kind of how can we help the community initiatives. And within a week, maybe 10 days, we were on the phone talking about how do we do something like this? Something like a virtual conference that we have not done before, to help the industry, help people continue to learn and engage when they can't do it via traditional means. So Dragos had pivoted their kind of approach with customers. We've pivoted our approach with customers from a training and an offering, and we're all operating in this new world. Rob and I really wanted to do the same thing from the perspective of the conferences and the summits that we would have normally held, to bring together speakers on topics that we think are going to be value to all of you, and bring together this community in a way where we can continue to move forward. So we had a plan, and that plan kind of went in a different direction. And now we are here, and it's just really, really humbling and amazing to see kind of a 7,000 person registration for an event like this. Looking at the agenda, the number of people that are speaking and the topics that they're presenting on, this is really kind of first of its kind. As I've said, out of SANS, we've done a summit for 15 years. We've never done anything like this. It's really exciting. So if you can go to next slide.
Oops. And I think that's actually a quick point too, because the word DISC is there, and I don't think I ever explained that to anybody. So DISC is the Dragos Industrial Security Conference. We run it every year, November 5th every year at our headquarters in Maryland, where SANS has these amazing events that are open to the entire community. What we wanted to do at Dragos was have just an asset owner event. So if you were a contractor, if you were a vendor, if you were a security researcher, academic, whatever, you weren't invited, which is not to dismiss anybody's contribution. It does take an entire community, but it was really just to get to the asset owners and operators and have a very private conference where you could get into more sensitive topics around here's the latest threat and what you need to know about it and what the latest issues are. And here's some actual case studies of incident response and similar. But we only run that we basically run it twice a year. We run the big one, which is the Asset one in Hanover, Maryland on November 5th every year. We'll probably do it this year, maybe just end up being a virtual event. But we also run with our some of our customers will run events that are regional to them, like Salt River Project, which is an amazing utility. We'll do it with them, you know, it's like a disc in the desert. And so Tim and I said, well, why don't we just have a disc with SANS? So the expectation for all of you is that that we will probably do this every year now, and we will likely do the CTF every year as well. So regardless of post, you know, COVID scenario, you should have a free conference and free CTF with really, really cool content around ICS every year for the community.
Awesome. On the why this conference matters, kind of just the opportunity, the same with summits and the same with the DISC conference, is really the focus on kind of meeting you where you are in your training need or in your leadership role in making decisions. This conference will kind of move through talks that'll help focus some very specific technology or some very specific capability for the practitioners who are on the line. And again, we're kind of looking at this from a wide casting of the net that every talk today may be of interest and information to you. Some talks may be more important than others. And again, you kind of have the opportunity to choose your own adventure and pick which ones you want to pay attention to and when you want to bounce back over to work and do other things. From the leaders' perspectives that are on the call, definitely we will be talking about some trends. We'll be talking about some things that will help you influence some of your decision-making around upcoming capital projects, around operating and maintenance budgets that you have and where to spend them, how to prioritize and kind of bucket the different things that you're faced with in decision-making, and definitely understanding that with the current global situation, there's a number of projects just like us where we had plans for 2020. There's a number of projects that probably immediately went to the highest level and highest priority that weren't previously there, meaning very, very rapidly you're pursuing some cloud-based solutions, some managed service solutions, some remote access. And as you're rushing towards those solutions, there's a number of speed bumps that we're going to try to put in the road to make you think about the cybersecurity impacts of that and the operating impacts of kind of implementing those tools and moving in that direction.
Perfect. And just in the interest of time, I'll speed us through this, Tim. So on the engagement piece, there is not a Slack channel. There isn't ability for everyone to chat with over 8,000 people. There was no way for us to moderate it. So you can ask Q&A. You can ask it through the Q&A button on Zoom. Also, the hashtag #DiscSANS is available to use on social media, and please do be social and talk and chat throughout the conference. On the feedback, you will note after each session today, there will be a link on the slide. Please take those down and pass feedback back to us. It's just a quick eval of each of the speakers. It's very, very intimidating for a lot of folks to stand in front and speak to 8,000 people. So any feedback that you can provide them is always useful, and there'll be an event one at the end of the day as well. So kicking into the material for like my 5-minute kind of where are we in the ICS community before I kick it over to Jason. First and foremost, there are a bunch of reports that we write every year. They're free to the community. You can just go download them. That are called our year in review reports. And what happened is there hasn't been really captured and documented insights in the ICS community, especially from a threat landscape and vulnerability and incident response perspective. I was really inspired actually through a lot of like the Mandiant M trends and Verizon DBIR and the kind of wonderful work that has gone into those over the years. So a couple of years ago, we started doing this at Dragos. And hopefully providing kind of a baseline of here's what we're seeing year on year and kind of seeing those trends. Be sure to go download the ones that we just launched here in February, the year in review reports for 2019. You'll see some of these stats referenced throughout today, but they talk about a true deep dive on what really is happening with ICS vulnerabilities, what's really happening with the threats, and what's really happening out with engagements and incident response and assessment. Like, what are the lessons learned around the community? I usually get that question a ton in class from folks is, okay, you just told us what we should be doing, but what are my peers also doing? Or what are others doing that they're finding successes or failures in, and let's learn from each other. So let's cover a couple of those real quick. When I think about what you need to prepare for, I usually think about the incident response first. a lot of folks go and say, well, let me have visibility, or let me get a firewall up and running, or let me deploy a technology. But realistically, you should be thinking about, what do I want to be able to deal with? What are the type of scenarios that I want to be able to protect my company from? And that's going to require protective, detective, and responsive functions. So start with the end goal in mind of what would that response look like and work backwards. As we went and did incident response cases across 2019, there's a couple key lessons that popped out over and over again that we can share with folks. The first of which is every single incident we did, the adversary ended up accessing the industrial control system directly from the internet. That doesn't mean they got in directly from the internet, but on their way out or in setting up command and control, or at some point, they were able to have direct internet communications down to the ICS. The second one that was really frustrating, and we understand, and we're not trying to put anybody down, but it was frustrating, is in 51% of the cases we did, of the incident response cases, the information presented to us on day one of the incident of here's our diagrams and information and how our network looks and how the ICS is configured and all that was wrong. And so 51% of the time, we would have been better off not having listened to the asset owner or operator at all and just figured it out from the beginning. And you don't want to be in that situation. You want to have the prep work done because you want incident response to be about the incident, not about all of the assessments that you should have done before the incident started. And then lastly, which was just something for us all to take as a kind of a banner and think about working throughout the next year, is the fact that we definitely have poor visibility. We've been talking a lot about asset identification and visibility in the ICS community, but we're definitely the beginning steps of those journeys. And what we found is 0%, none of our incident response engagements were at all facilitated with any level of network monitoring or aggregated logging or any robust visibility at all in those ICS environments. So it's just an area for us to work on. From a threat landscape side, we currently track 11 different activity groups. So think of these as 11 different clusters of intrusion, 11 different teams, 11 different threats that are specifically targeting industrial control system environments. And in this past year, we ended up identifying 3 new ones to add to it to make the roster of 11. And no surprise, but those 3 were specifically around things like third-party and supply chain access. You'll find that you might think you have an inability to get into your ICS from your enterprise environment, and maybe that's correct. I would challenge that, but let's just take that for face value. What's very common is once you're in the ICS, there's all sorts of remote connections out to vendors and integrators and maintenance personnel and similar. And it's not just your IT environment that gets compromised, it's other people's IT environments that get compromised that now have access to your ICS environment. And so we saw that pretty regularly with these threats going after VPNs or remote access into these environments and making sure that they are targeting industries that they could go and pre-position and do follow-on actions. We haven't seen anything rise to the level of what we've seen in 2015 Ukraine, 2016 Ukraine, or 2017 Saudi Arabia with the Traces attack, but those threats are still active. Good example is, even though we're not highlighting the new ones here, we're only highlighting the new ones. You know, Xenotime, the threat group that was responsible for the attack on the Saudi petrochemical facility where they try to kill people through that malware and the attack, that group has still been active and it's going and targeting other locations. And so we still want people to be aware of this, but how? And so the expectation can't just be that you rely on a vendor. And while we love our relationship with our customers, we want to make sure that there's an answer for everybody regardless. So this past year, we ended up working really closely with the MITRE folks and help them develop their attack for ICS. So they've been working on this for a while. We were able to contribute what we were seeing from Intel and what we're seeing from what we were doing in our work. And if you're familiar with the MITRE attack, MITRE attack for enterprise, it ended up being a really, really foundational framework for folks to be able to communicate about what they were trying to detect, regardless of who did it. So without trying to say like, it's China and Russia, US and whatever, no, just what do I actually need to be able to detect and respond to? And let's think about the preventative, detective, and responsive controls. And so MITRE attack for enterprise was very, very successful. MITRE attack for ICS, as it was getting developed, there's not like I said, there wasn't a lot of case studies to be able to pull from, because a lot of stuff happens in ICS and there's a lot of incidents and there's a lot of things that go on. And we are very good as a community of going, that doesn't need to be in the New York Times. Let's handle that internally. And so the community's still sharing. It's just not as public as in other industries. And so like I said, we contributed a lot to this framework to say, hey, here's what we're seeing that we can anonymize and make valuable to the community. And MITRE took it and ran with it and did an amazing job. And they created this framework to focus you on tactics and techniques. I usually hear a lot of stuff in the community about like anomaly detection and like, oh, we want to detect anomalies. But I'm not saying anomaly detection is bad and you shouldn't have a way to detect anomalous events in your environment. But I want you to be able to detect known tradecraft and techniques as well. And no security operations person has ever said, I'd like 10,000 contextless anomalies today. Like, that's not a use case of triaging and threat detection. That's stuff you can use for hunting and similar. So for us, we want to focus people on the tactics and techniques of the adversaries and being able to go and look for those in their environment, regardless of that adversary, because tactics and techniques aren't specific to one adversary group. So getting a couple of these that you can do can give you wide coverage against a lot of threats. And so this is a public framework out now for everybody to go drill into, be able to ask and see a lot of things going on with it and how to use it. The idea is to be able to take activity groups like Electrum, which was responsible for the Ukraine 2016 attack, and be able to map out their kill chain of events across MITRE attack. And now you've got a blueprint for this is what an Electrum styled attack looks like, regardless of who orchestrates it. And this should be able to be something you use for pen testing, for red teaming, for thinking about prevention strategy, for thinking about ICS security roadmap, for thinking about your detection and response strategy. It's an exceptionally important tool. So what we did in our year in review reports as well is just highlighted some of the top tactics and techniques that you should be thinking about. So as you go forward this next year, you should be focused on these and feel free to do more, of course. I hope you do. But if nothing else, here are the top interesting ones that we've seen from each activity group to give you a place to focus on understanding, okay, well, how would I detect and respond to a safety engineering workstation being compromised? Do I have the ability to actually understand what's going on in the ICS protocol itself? Because a lot of the attacks we're seeing aren't about malware and vulnerabilities. A lot of the attacks we're seeing are about native functionality. If you can turn off the lights at the circuit breaker, you can turn it off. If I can load safety logic into the safety system, I can unload it. How can I work in the native functionality of this environment? And that's what we're seeing the adversaries doing. We'll call it living on the land, but it's not the same type of living on the land things that you would see in the enterprise. And that's pretty much it for me. I want to get it over to Jason. Tim asked me to do a talk at this conference, but I just think there's already so much material and like really, really good material that I didn't want to take everyone's time and have another talk. So what I did instead is I scheduled what my talk would have been for this conference as a follow-on webinar. And for anybody that's interested, what I'm going to be doing is Ramsey and I are going to be going through things from an ICS security roadmap perspective. Tons of organizations hit me up all the time from either board or CSO level of saying, how do we build out our program? We've done enterprise security, we're pretty good with it, but we recognize that you can't just take the same framework, the same GRC, the same standards, and just copy and paste it in IT or ICS. It's not going to work. Can't take IT standards and just copy and paste it over. So what should we be building in terms of roadmaps? And I've seen a ton of wrong roadmaps. And so over the past 3 years, I've helped build these roadmaps with a number of companies, just as a thing I've done for basically friends of these companies, and had a lot of successes. And so on that webinar on May 20th, Ramsey and I'll go through what those lessons learned will be and give you some actionable things. Instead of saying, you should have a roadmap that has people, process, and technology or some highfalutin thing, actually say, nope, here's the frameworks to use. Here's how you do it. Here's how you dissect the threat use cases against it. Here's how you build a collection management framework, et cetera, et cetera. And hopefully that'll put all of you that are asset owners and operators in a really good position to be thinking about your security in a much larger view than just quote unquote, cyber hygiene or the simple things. And yeah, simple things can matter and they can definitely help you, but you've got to be prepared for what's coming and work backwards if you're ever going to have a successful strategy.